What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern. Welcome to episode 19 of the Discern Recap. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for being with me. On this show, I bring you my recommendations of the best new albums, EPs, or singles from the broad category of Christian music. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any new episodes, please be sure to subscribe. I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. If you have a question or a comment, something you want to share, be my guest, you can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews, or you could email me, discernreviews@gmail.com. Go ahead and follow me over on Twitter if you want to, at discernreviews, like I mentioned. We just broke 100 followers over there, so the community is growing. People are climbing on. It's awesome to have all you guys, to have the ones who comment and share. Thank you for being part of the community, seriously. Before I get to the recommendations, there are two singles that I want to briefly mention. But in the interest of time, I am not diving deep into them. Firstly, Switchfoot's new single, Float. Super happy and funky track. Perfect start of the summer type of song. I do feel like this track it's probably taking some of its influences and cues from the wave of popular 60s and 70s funk and R&B styles that have sort of cropped up lately. You know, Pharrell, Bruno Mars, Justin Timberlake. That pop style with a huge emphasis on rhythmic trebly guitars, dreamy falsetto vocals, undeniably infectious bass lines. And this track is no different. Speaking of bass lines, I've always thought the bass work from Switchfoot, Jon Foreman's brother Tim, especially in his early albums, or Switchfoot's early albums, is super, super good. It's rarely in the spotlight, but it's intricate, it's interesting. So I thought this song was well overdue for them. So check that one out. Also, second track I want to mention, The Breeze Is Gone from SYG. This is a hip-hop and rap single with a jaw-dropping, effortless flow and sound. The vocal delivery here is so reminiscent of Lupe Fiasco and other artists like him. SYG seriously gets how poetic and musical the delivery of lyrics can be. The delivery alone, I mean, before you even realize what he's saying, is so compatible with the instrumental that the whole track just congeals into a singular groove and beat. The vocals, bass, drums, it's like they're best buddies, tightly knit and on point together. So I could not stop listening to this track over the last few days. I basically fell out of my chair the first time I heard it. I mean, this guy nails it on this one. So definitely give that one a listen. I will post links to these, both singles, in the description below. On to the two more fully fleshed out recommendations. Recommendation 1, Jon Corbin with the album A New Direction. Jon Corbin is a hip-hop artist from Ontario, Canada, who's been making music for at least 10 years now. He has released a handful of EPs, quite a handful of EPs. Through much of his back catalog, he's been embracing the moniker of Runaway, but on this new project, he's leaving it behind. He says he felt convicted that it no longer felt applicable. He didn't feel right keeping that name, keeping that title here on this new record, which is more of a personal story, a dive into his own journey. So let's look at it. This album is very message driven. If you're paying attention, this album will confront you, it will redirect you, encourage you, guide you, correct you. It's very purposeful in its intent. It has something to say. This project was, I think, made to make an impact, and not through flash or glamour or frills, but through honest substance. Jon is a storyteller telling his own story, and this album has, I think, some really compelling moments. I thought the first few tracks, the first three in particular, were sort of middle of the road, good, not great, in lyrics, production, arrangement. It was all just all right. But then the album kicks off a series of very intimate, detailed, filled songs with rich narratives, authentic personality. These songs get into his feelings, good and bad, sort of the internal struggles of being mixed, being part black, part white, which reaches into some serious and deep questions and dialogues about race. He also gets into the history of his relationship with his father, who sounds like he basically left his family. And as he unpacks these burdens and trials he's faced, he lets you into his heart. He lets you see how these events have shaped him and how they've caused him to grow both spiritually and just as a man day to day in his everyday life. I think this central portion of the album is really the heart of the project. It's what's most striking, most moving, by far the most unique part of the record. And to be honest, what really put this album on my recommendations list this week was that central heart. There's a number of tracks that didn't really move the needle for me, but some of these, there's a good number that were, unavoidably attention grabbing. They came out and pulled me right in. In terms of sound and style, the production is pretty varied. There's a good amount of sort of gospel and jazz inspired, some pop influences there too, not nearly to the level of like shiny pop rap hooks that you see these days. It's just more of a simple pop flavor and style. Definitely it's all in the realm of hip hop. It's more old school than modern, but it's lightweight, it's easy to digest. It's not hard, not banging, it's just grooving. The album has numerous times where it samples interviews, podcasts, stand-up comedians. Shout out to Baron Vaughn. Funny, and very quirky comedian. Often these samples are in long stretches, which I really thought broke the mold sort of for your average hip-hop track. The point is not to use the sample as a quick in and out, but to carry forward the message that was laid out in the sample. He's almost playing the role of courier, carrying a message from one place to another, using it to back the message of his track. I also appreciated on this album the overall average Joe feeling. There's many times where he doesn't seem cool, he doesn't seem powerful. It doesn't have that braggadocio nature that rap has, that sort of staple of the genre. Most rappers, spend their bars bragging, flaunting, even in Christian hip-hop. And Jon uses his verses like a precious resource. He spends very little time rapping about his rapping, but instead raps about a message, a gospel message, a hopeful message, one told from his firsthand experience, from his journey. I haven't seen a whole lot of buzz about this new record from Jon Corbin, but I think it's well worth your time. Be patient with it. The first few tracks are pretty mild, and the whole album is not catchy, production heavy, fire bar after fire bar. It's not that type of record. It's a story-driven album told by, I think, a very skilled storyteller. So if you sit down, give it some time, listen, I do think you'll appreciate it. Check it out, links in the description. And the next recommendation we have from another outside the US group, Lead Us Forth with the album Interlocutor. Lead Us Forth is a progressive metalcore and hardcore band from Auckland, New Zealand. They are definitely the first band from New Zealand that I've talked about on this show. This album is their debut full-length record. Back in 2013, they released the Wayward EP, and they have been working on this new album for about the last year and a half. This being their debut, I was floored by how unified and tightly knit the performances were on this album. Either the post-production covered up the imperfections and got it all squeaky clean, or these guys are the real deal. And a few minutes looking around on YouTube at some live videos, one of which I'll link below in the description, really shows the phenomenal chops these guys have. I've always been a bit unsure when I hear a crisp and shiny hardcore band. You know, it sounds like it's been meticulously crafted, you know, placed note by note in a laboratory. I know a guy actually who records and mixes metal and hardcore bands, and oftentimes, you know, to get that sound, that lab metaphor is not really too far off. It's piecing and stitching together a sound that's impossibly difficult to recreate live. But despite what post-production finishing touches and polishes took place on this record, I do think the substance here is solid craftsmanship. So let's dive into this one. Interlocutor, which means a person who takes part in a dialogue or a conversation, which is a huge theme of the lyrics. Open discussions, willingness to listen to others, dissecting truth from lies, not being partisan but being unbiased and intellectually honest and respectful with one another. The lyrics, though, they were not the most hearty and satisfying thing on this record, although they were good. The sound of this record is what I loved the most. It's very balanced in its blend of progressive metal and hardcore or metalcore. It features a progressive metal technique and a style approached with hardcore sounds and characteristics. So it's, on one hand, thrashy and heavy like most hardcore music, but it also features prog rock influenced intricacies and complexities of rhythm and accents, you know, primarily from the interplay between the guitars and the drums. The beats are so sporadically active and chopped up, but yet played so precisely. You know, it's so unified. It's mesmerizing to hear these almost uncalculated, out of nowhere accents in such a constant and cleanly performed stream. Another thing I really appreciated on this album was how Lead Us Forth doesn't really fall into the main tropes and stereotypes of progressive metal or hardcore. I think they explore and they experiment all around these genre territories. They do a good job of not sitting on and sort of rehashing the same idea over and over. I think the amount of versatility and creativity in their instrumental writing is such a pleasure to hear. There's numerous times where I found myself shocked and surprised at what I was hearing, just amazed at the sound, the performance they were pulling off. They're very talented on a technical level, but I really think they're very inventive and not afraid to break the mold either. I know these guys aren't creating the most difficult and challenging music out there. I don't think that's their goal, not at all. But the music they write is definitely a head turner. It's a standout, I think, amongst their contemporaries. Also, Lead Us Forth does a good job of implementing melody as well. They definitely have the ability to pull off energetic, you know, and melodically rich choruses, and also low-key, prettier sections with notable post-rock influenced clean guitar tones and echoes. There's even moments where the band shows off their more funk and jazz-inspired talents as well, with rich guitar solos, syncopated rhythms. Progressive rock definitely has its connections and streams of influence from both funk and jazz. So I think that fits really well, actually, with their overall sound. I highly recommend this album, that you check it out if you're a fan of metal or hardcore music. I understand the sound and the production of this record is beautified and tidied up so much that it can sterilize the humanity, the personality of the music at times. I did notice that from time to time during the album. Not significantly, but it's got that sense to it at times. Even so, I really enjoyed this debut album from Lead Us Forth. I'm really impressed with what they created here. I am wondering though, you know, where do they go from here? Because when I was done listening, I wanted to start it all over again. But I also thought, I wonder what's next. What's the next record going to sound like? I hope they gain some momentum with this release, carry forward, move onward and upward, keep exploring, keep experimenting in these genres. I'm digging what they're doing so far. So check it out below, link in the description. And that is it, friends. Thank you for watching the Discern recap. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. And if you really enjoy this video, share it around, spread the word, share it with your friends, help build the channel, grow the community. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. And if you've got something to add to this one-way conversation, you can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews. You could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Did you listen to any of the singles, the albums I mentioned? If so, what did you think of them? If not, what have you been listening to lately? Anything good? Or has it all been garbage poo music? I hope not, for your sake. But you know what? You can count on me. Dan, the Discern man, has got you covered with the good music. At least that's my biased opinion. So anyway, I'm out of here. Hope this helped. See ya.